Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Taufik from the Singapore Botanic Gardens. Welcome back to the online edition of the Singapore Garden Festival Hot Show 2021. We hope you have an enjoyable time following our online program since last weekend. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Damien Koh. Hi, Damien.
Hello.
Mr. Damien Koh is a certified floral designer, CFD. He was inducted to the American Institute of Floral Designers in 1996. Later on, he was inducted into the Professional Floral Communicators International PFCI in 2015. He is named as one of the world's most renowned florists. He has toured over 40 cities, and during that time, he was a floral designer, educator, judge, author, just to name a few. Throughout his time, he has also been conferred the following awards and titles. To start with, he has a diploma in European Floral Art and Modern Floral Design, Senior Professor in Ikenobo Ikebana, member of the Ikenobo 4, Tachibana Award by Ikenobo Central Training Institute, and also as a Senior Floral Consultant for the Beijing Olympics. Today, he will interest us with his flair in floral arrangement through a series of demonstrations. There will be a Q&A segment later to answer your curiosities. You can also upvote any relevant questions that you would like to see answered. So without further delay, let's welcome Mr. Damien Koh.
Thank you, Taufik. Hello, good afternoon once again. Welcome. And today I do have the pleasure of working with everybody here online. Yes, everything is now online, so I'll try my best, slow down a little bit. We'll of course give you close-ups so that you can actually enjoy the whole process of us trying to create an arrangement or other arrangements for today. This is actually a very simple structure. And well, I say simple because this is part of my profession. And what we do is to actually use florist wires. So if you can see what is inside, it's actually florist wires. And we actually handmade it into a chicken wire format. And because it's handmade, we are allowed to and able to manipulate the form of this. And now that you're seeing the whole camera, can you imagine me wearing this as a hat, for example? And of course, we can actually use this for a lot of other designs. This is just one way. I've actually used this structure for a hand-tied bouquet. And the reason why I'm using this today again is because it takes quite a while to create a structure. And we want to be able to reuse them so that this minimizes a lot of unnecessary time. But the most important thing is that we can actually show multiple usages for one simple structure. And here you see, well, I won't be able to tilt this container any further because as you can see, there's water inside. And these are actually aluminum wires. And the good thing about aluminum wires is they actually can replace the standard floral foam that we're using very often. Well, yes, even in our floristry trade, we are working towards environmental friendly products, but this is a billion-dollar empire throughout the world. So it takes time for all of us to slowly work towards it. And this is probably one of the alternatives you can actually use for your design. And the good thing is, well, because a lot of materials are given water direct, so they actually will survive much longer. So it's good that you have this as another option that you can do. And for those of you who are familiar with Ikebana, you also know that we actually do designs as in nage-ire, where you throw flowers into a container. This is not purchased, this is actually cut from a friend's garden. And you might think that we can just cut anywhere. No, please do not. Just go to your friend's house, your friend's garden, or for that matter, if you're very good at gardening, perhaps you like to grow a philodendron. So this is quite easy to grow. And because I have a structure in place, so it's very easy for me to insert materials. For example, what you see here. So I'm just trying to push it into the networking here, and it's being captured at the base where the aluminum wire is. And whenever we work with structure, one of the good things is that they actually allow us to hold materials in place that we don't have to worry so much about it. Leucospermum pin cushion. And why is it called a pin cushion? It's because they look like pin. If you're into fashion designing, you probably would need a little pin so that you could control your fabrics before you design them or you sew them together. And this is a very beautiful flower. And of course, country of origin is actually from South Africa. Well, they call this wildflowers. Don't we all wish we have gardens who can produce wildflowers like these? So as you can see, I have actually placed one of this very beautiful flower right in the center. But as I work towards the rest of the design, I want to move them down into different levels. Well, I don't know how long I need to cut. So what I'm doing here is to make a comparison with the first flower that I did. So probably lower. So oops. So that's where I want to cut it shorter. And always remember to remove unnecessary leaves from the stems. This is for two reasons. Number one, because you don't need these leaves in the design because it will interfere with my design. And number two, when you remove unnecessary leaves from the plant material or the commercial cut flowers, when water travel upwards, they don't go to the leaves first only. So what they do is when they travel up, when you don't have additional leaves to help drink up water, you are actually supplying water directly to the flowers. So that would help prolong the lifespan, or what we professionally call them as your vast life of your materials. I went to look for flowers for my demonstration here today, and this is a very beautiful champagne, kind of brown, and it's like cream. It has multi-colors in just one flower. So what I'm trying to do here is to try and pick up the colors that I can see from here. And you see from the side, you see a little bit of pink, a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow. So this helps me blend into the whole design. And I would suggest you to consider putting this as a table centerpiece right in your dining table. And again, the structure allows me to work with different angles. So what I'm trying to do here is some of the flowers are actually going very low towards the edge of the container. And I like roses like this without removing the protective layers, the protective petals. But of course, if you don't like it, it's always a little bit dirty, black, and a little bit more crumpled. But the good thing about this is it's protecting your roses. So commercially, when we use flowers like this, by the time it reaches us as a florist, what we do is we need to condition the flowers. So what I'm going to do here today, I'm not going to touch the protective petals because I love it just the way it is. That's part of nature. Imperfection, a little bit of even little holes made by little worms. It's actually sometimes quite beautiful. And of course, personal preferences. If you really don't like it, of course you may and you can actually remove them. What I'm trying to create is something like what I love, which is my ice kacang. So for ice kacang, when they build it up to a mountain-like, and slowly you put onto your ice kacang, the shaved ice, with different colored syrup. So what I'm trying to do here is to try and create a floral ice kacang. And of course, you don't get to eat it, but you feast it with your eyes. And I hope you may also want to work with flowers that have a little bit of fragrance, because then you actually get to enjoy it in more than one way. So the rest is simple. I have actually built up the main frame. What I'm going to do next is sparingly, within the whole structure, I'm just going to spread out all the flowers. and I have to hide a little bit underneath the leaves and the structure so that they actually blend with each other better. Well, I always like designs like this for one specific reason, because it all depends on the color of your house, your furniture, your personal preference, and most importantly, budget. So if you don't want to spend a lot of money for a lot of flowers, you don't need to. You just need to have a couple of flowers. And next, I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow, and this yellow comes from my Aranda Hilda Galestine. And this actually helps into bringing a little bit from the orange, the red, into that champagne brown, creamy colored rose sprays. And of course, because they come in long sprays, so flowers actually go all the way throughout the whole design. And this will actually help visual balance. And again, I'm not going to use a lot of flowers for the simple reason because I want to show off partially the structure. Okay. I would love to grow my own ivy. As much as I think I have green fingers, they don't work very well because I don't really have that much time taking good care of them. And I think with a lot of us having to work from home, and you also have to have more time. So gardening has become part of a very good hobby. And as much as you read from the internet or the news, you get to see a lot of people actually doing very well with gardening. So here it is. I'm using the ivy. What I'm doing is trying to blend them into the structure. And what I'm also doing is trying to weave the stems up and down so that it blends and becomes part of the design. Long and short, so not everything is long, but you do have to remember that you insert the stems right into the bottom of the container. Well, because then your stems get to touch the water reservoir, which is already inside your container. And let's say, for example, you have a really long table and you don't want it round. So what can you do? Extend them by letting the stems flow outwards, either to the left or to the right. But I'm not going to do it. It doesn't work for my design today because I'm just going to keep it a little bit more roundish. This is actually Liriope, and it's from Ophifogan. Looks like onion, right? Or like a strand of ribbon. So sometimes we actually call it the ribbon grass or the lily grass or the onion grass, common names. So when you work with a design like this, make sure you always remember to look around the whole design. And it's good that I have a turntable here today so that you actually can see that I'm trying to flow the materials throughout the whole design. And to move the colors a little bit for rhythm, I'm actually finally adding a little bit of hypericum. So they actually touch up a little bit of the spaces in between and help me to bring in the colors from the roses to the pincushions. And of course, I will remember to try and put flowers towards the side at different angles, different levels. So regardless of where you are sitting, you will be able to see the design from the top right to the bottom. And for those of you who are wondering, why am I using a knife instead of a scissors? Well, the thing is that protecting the flowers and keeping them to last as long as possible, one of the ways is to give them a good cut. And by using a florist's knife, I actually minimize contacts between blades and floral materials. and it allows me to give it a very sharp and big cut so that it reveals a little bit more cutting area. And with the extended cutting area, of course, it will help in prolonging the lifespan of my cut flowers. How about this? Isn't this really simple? Just a couple of flowers, a little net, and voila, I'm done. And of course, I've actually prepared extra materials, but you may or you may not want to use them. So I've actually put on standby different flowers. This is sanguisoba, and of course, this is my limonium. But I think I like to keep it as it is without a little bit more of these tiny flowers. So there you go, very simple design. Okay, so the next one is also quite simple. I'm saying quite simple is because this one doesn't require a lot of time to make a structure. So of course, it's much simpler. This is actually quite heavy. And the reason why I'm designing it this way is this is just slightly underneath my chin. So if I do stand up quite straight up, you can see my face just on top of my structure. And this is very simple, slim little container. I actually made this metal container myself, asking a contractor to help me with it because you cannot buy containers like this. And to make it look more structural, what I've done is I've actually used a water plant, Cypress 6, and I've removed the top leaves that looks like an umbrella, and I only use the sticks this way. And the good thing about a design like this, it will last you more than 2 weeks or even up to 3. Why do I say that? Because when they turn yellow, they look equally beautiful. So when the color changes, you can always change a little bit of the flowers, and that you can actually work on a different design theme. And within this whole design, you actually see little berries, and these are actually rose hips. That means when your rose is mature enough, they become fruits. So these are the fruits of roses, and there you go. You have tiny little dots here and there, and it looks really, really interesting. And this will be probably the front of the design, and I have a bigger section, a smaller section. I'm going to use this middle part, which I have actually left with a little bit more space in between so that I can actually create a design within this space, okay? The same roses, really love this color. The only difficulty for this design is actually my hands. I'm not exactly a tiny little guy, so, well, you have to push your hand through the structure that you have created yourself. That is me. And what I'm going to do is to try and put in flowers. Even though I'm facing the arrangement, as you can see from the camera, you're actually looking at the back of the design. I'm putting a little something for you to enjoy. And I will need the flowers on different levels. This is quite interesting for the eye to see because it's so busy all the time. There's plenty of little things to look at. So that's why you need to control the whole design into this particular section where it allows your eye to focal on a certain area. And in floral design, this is what we want, a focal area to the design. Let's see. Probably I'm going to keep this one because it's more straight in this way. And I like that line because it will help me arrive at what I want. So you see, I'm trying to put all the roses on different levels as much as I can. And this actually creates a little bit of interest because of the rhythm created in the design. And like a lot of times you see that not everything is going to listen to you, so I'm going to put a few flowers running away from the main frame. And I think it's also interesting this way to create a little bit of fun in the design. I'm not sure if you guys celebrate Halloween, but this looks like a Halloween product to me. This is really, really interesting. Try and think where you have seen this. I'm going to keep quiet for the time being, and you try and guess, where have you seen this? And perhaps when I show you this one, you probably would be able to remember. Yes? Are you a dessert person? This is actually your gooseberries. Well, I'm a foodie person for dessert, so, well, but this, please do not eat them because these are commercially grown and they probably have a little bit more insecticide that I don't think this is fit for eating, so please do not. But it adds a lot of interest to the whole design because when you see the whole stem, they actually have, from the bottom, the color has a graduation going from very dark to very light. Probably someone is going to ask. So this is actually, I think this is imported from Holland. And now, because of shipping difficulty, a lot of times we don't get as much flowers as we used to. So this is called physalis. And again, I'm also adding to the back of the design because always in a design we want to see depth. So you cannot just put them right in front. It's good to grow also orchids, and this is a very beautiful dendrobium flower, and because of the size, it's just nice for my design. So I'm just going to try and use it in the design. Because this whole design has got to do with crossings and movements, so even my dendrobium will be used in a cross manner. And from your camera view, you probably can see that I do have a test tube to hold the Anthurium leaf. There we go, ta-da! And from the camera, you can see the movements of the color from right underneath the bottom as we move towards the higher section of the design. Let me continue with adding a little bit more flowers. Always think of the space that you can create in the design. So as I'm working with the design, I'm also developing the design. I have got a really interesting gibra. And some of you may pronounce that as gibras. So it depends on your country of origin or your habit of calling them. And this, they have very special petals. And again, the creamy color works exactly the same like the ones that I have used in the rose sprays. So try and work with different sizes in the design because that helps to create visual interest. Probably one more flower. And to complete the design, I have actually kept a little bit more of my rose hips. So just going to touch up a little bit. And here we go. That's very simple, very straightforward. So we kept the focal somewhere in between the 2/3 and 1/3 space so that you can actually enjoy the design. Chopsticks. Lots of chopsticks. And what I'm going to do with the chopsticks is to create a design and again, I'm removing unnecessary leaves. And within this structure itself, I actually do have test tubes attached to my chopsticks. And this actually allows me to design very freely. So when I design with the chopstick structure, what I can do is to use the space and again, I'm keeping the roses as it is, not touching them, not removing the protective petals. And I want to spread out the flowers, both left and right. A little bit more leaves removed. Try and remember when you make a design, not just only at the front of the design, but also move materials to the back of the design. And this creates the kind of depth that is required in a design. And again, I'm going to use the Aranda orchids. And this is to help me blend the colors of the orange and the red and soften the two very, very solid color into something slightly softer. And of course, if you try look closely into the Aranda orchids, you'll be able to pick up the colors that is within them. And again, a little bit of the greens, and this actually flows, a little bit movements. Just going to add a few more. And of course, moving to the front, to the back, left, right, and also to the center of the design. And it all started with little chopsticks that I made into triangles. And all this triangle will allow me to form little structure by itself. And if I add the second one, when I cable tie them together, from here it develops into a structure. Okay, so I hope this gives you an idea of what is possible with actually chopsticks. And to make it even more interesting, what we can do is to laminate any color. In this case, I use bronze, so that they actually can be added to the design and even make it more dramatic and angular. This actually enhances the structure. Okay, so a little bit more. I think this is an interesting way to create a design because you can work with any colors you want, and if it's Christmas coming, Chinese New Year coming, Hari Raya, Deepavali. You can change the colors accordingly to fit the occasion. So not a lot, very simple, straightforward, and there you go, we have another design. And very simply today, I shared with all of you 3 different designs that you want to try, hopefully. And hopefully this gives you an inspiration to want to use flowers at home, do gardening, and enjoy flowers as it is, smell them. And we're going to keep a little bit of time for questions and answers. So if you do have a questions, please send it to us. I'm going to wait for questions to appear. How can we transform inspiration from sculptures? Example, Chiholi's glass to our floral display. Wonderful questions. Inspiration comes from a lot of things. Number 1, for me, floral materials. Number 2, containers. Number 3, culture. Number 4, anything design. So it can be architect, it can be a book, it can be art. So my free time, what I like to do is to go shopping. Shopping by eyes, window shopping. And every time you see something, there is a possibility to convert a design from what you see. For example, this and this. This design comes from architectural inspiration, from buildings, from just wire structures before they even put cement or other building materials into it. So for that, if you look at some of these glass works that were featured, you notice that there are actually designs that you can try and work with. Let's hope the camera, let me adjust. Okay, there we go. Okay. You notice that this is actually also the same chopsticks, but I've made it into a very big teardrop. And of course, a lot of design comes from 3 basic things: square, circle, and triangle. And then you see that I've actually changed it by adding flowers to it. And again, I'm not covering the whole design. I'm only using partial of it. So, for example, I think this is my book. I've produced this book quite some time back. And I think I have a design that I can show you. This is actually quite similar to what you see by the glass artists, because there was one with a lot of spikes. And it's quite upright, but you can actually interpret it into, for example, a design like this. So he has this, he has balls, quite a lot of designs. How do we keep fresh flowers arrangement alive longer in this climate? Well, there are a few things we can do. Number 1, when you receive flowers, let's say, for example, if you buy them as cut flowers, you want to actually bring them back, remove, like what I did just now, unnecessary leaves away, and try and trim off something that is withering, yellowish, because that would actually help prolong the life of your fresh cut flowers. And put them in fresh waters. If you have the ability to do that, change the water on a daily basis every day with a fresh cut of the stems, because bacteria do build up at the cut space. So that would actually block water intake. And there are professional floral food that you can actually give to your water. And with the flower food, you probably need to change water every 2 or 3 days. Don't try funny things, what you heard, like adding certain medication. It doesn't work this way. Flower do have proper flower food. And keep it away from heat, not to put near to the window in the kitchen where you generate a lot of heat cooking. Do not put your flowers near to most of fruits and vegetables, because they do produce ethylene gas, and some flowers are more sensitive than others to ethylene gas. So I hope this helps. Do we have the next question? What a great idea for the structure, sustainability, and aesthetic. How is the florist wire structure constructed? Oh dear, you caught me unprepared. Okay, The thing is that you need florist wires, and if you try and recall what a chicken wire looked like, you put two wires together, crossed. You need to hold them really tight and twist two of them together all at one time. Do not, I repeat, do not take one wire and you coil around the second one because it will never work. So what you need to do is to twist. And if you understand Chinese and if you eat ma hua, the Tianjin little snack where they actually roll through those, they coil them together and make it into a short little snack, which is fabulous. And what you need to do is to make sure you do that. So every time you need to build on the size, you can always add additional wires and you can twist and turn and build on it and expand it into any design, any size. And of course, florist wire is just one of the things that you can actually use to make a chicken wire. Or you can go to, for example, hardware stores and get yourself commercial big rolls of wires. So they're used for construction building. But do not get those too thick. I would suggest you get, for example, a florist wire for beginners, nothing more than size number 20. Because if you start working with size 18 and size 16, it's going to be very tough on your hand. So try and work on this. Well, thank you for that question. I'm sorry I'm caught off guard. Well, probably, hopefully, I get to do another one just to show you that one. Zinnias, marigolds, and cosmos work as good as cut flowers. Are there any cut flowers that we can grow in Singapore apart from orchids? In fact, zinnias, marigold, you can actually grow them in Singapore. I used to buy them, especially during Chinese New Year, where they come in potted form. So you just cut the ones that are mature enough, you leave the rest to bloom. And a lot of flowers here in Singapore are actually quite easy to grow. For example, anthuriums, plenty of different colors that you can grow other than orchids. So anthurium would be a good choice. And also, for example, heliconias, if you have your garden, ginger, and there are a lot of other plants that you can actually try and keep them. Cyclamen, for example, I do use them, but because cyclamens are very, very short, so sometimes they're only good for very small designs. For example, periwinkles, you may want to try that, but to me, you know, when I grow a pot, they just have that few flowers. It's kind of hard for me to just want to cut them off and use them. So if you do have a bigger garden, by all means, go and try different materials, okay? What inspires your designs? Do you plan them in advance? And has that changed as you gain experience? Everything inspires me, and I'm mostly inspired by food. So I had design based on chicken rice, I had design based on spring rolls, I had design based on spaghettis. So this is just one way. And I think food is very much part of culture. So when you look around yourself, everything and anything is possible to get inspired from. For example, today, right here on site where I'm giving you this demonstration, I have very handsome camera crew right in front, and I see the way they station the cameras, how they have spaced out themselves. This actually creates a rhythm in my mind, and it's quite similar to the design like this, where you have a lot of products, and then you have your crew, and then you have your cameras, and your screens, and your lights. And I think a lot of inspiration comes from books and travels. So when you see what nature is all about, come to botanical gardens. Plant materials, how they grow, crisscrossing of lines, texture on bark, stones, and how water reflects images actually creates a lot of inspiration moments. Anything is possible, so just try and explore them. Where can we source for the materials which are being used today? Go and visit your friendly florist, because your florist would be able to get a lot of products that otherwise you're not familiar with, because a lot of wholesalers do not sell direct to end users. So make friends with your florists. I am one. So always remember to make friends with your florist. It's just like you make friends with your food stalls, you know, your hairdresser. When you have a good relationship with the florist and they know your needs and your preferences, they can always give you advices. And of course, other than this, you may want to try some of the wholesalers out there. They do carry certain products. As for fresh cut materials, florists, wholesalers, and even online, they should be able to get the materials that I've used today, but do bear in mind flowers do come seasonal, so you have to make sure that it's in season. Rosehip is the last bit of it because I got the last bunch today, so sorry, you won't be able to get that. But things like cypress, things like philodendrons, they are plentiful all the time. How do you change the water in the containers? I don't, because it's almost impossible to do that. This is possible because I can just take it out, pour the water. Shall I do that for you? But make sure you also grab the aluminum wire. I can change that and I can just put fresh water. I'm just going to put it back. As you can see, nothing changed. This is a little bit more tricky unless you want to take out everything, dump the water, put in fresh ones. But I always use flower food. And I don't expect my flowers to last very long, especially, for example, roses. But I'm a florist myself, and I work with flowers all the time. It's never a problem for me to take out everything, redesign them all together by changing water. And for containers, just add enough water so they will last. Do not add sugar water because, question was, can we add sugar water? No, because ants is going to come after your water. And too much sugar is not a proper way of food for flowers. They actually will not help prolong the life of your flowers. Do purchase professional formula, which is flower food. There are actually 2 or 3 different brands. Check with your florist or any of the garden centers that also sell flowers. They should be able to provide you with the correct kind of flower food. What is the long grass in the second arrangement? This one. Yes, I think so, because this is first, second. Well, this one is actually Cypress 6. It's a water plant. Well, there are some grown in botanical gardens, and I think you should be able to purchase them in a lot of wholesale centers because they do sell them in bunch of 10. Quite pretty long. The sticks are probably my height or higher. Yep. No questions? What kind of twigs was used for the first bird nest structure, please? Good one. Do anything you like. What I use here, because these are actually fern leaves. As a florist, we work with the cheapest and the most expensive materials that we can get. Fern leaves are relatively cheap because they come in a bundle of 40, 50 stems. It's relatively economical. So what we usually use them for is for bigger works that we need to conceal our mechanics. But sometimes, as much as we want to sell out everything, they don't. And I don't usually throw away my materials, so I put them there, just let them dry. And there was one day I was just playing with it, trying to remove the leaves and see if I can work something out of it. And yes, it was just left with all the stems. And I thought, hey, this looks really interesting. So I created a design like this, which I have also tried with other materials. Are you familiar with the broom, sapulidi? The coconut leaves, when you strip off the leaves, it's left with that stem. And back then, I remember uncles and aunties where they were cleaning up, they were using that stick to clean. So that is one material you can actually work with. So for other materials, for example, like the ivy, when they do dry up, they don't work for you anymore, whether it's in cut or in potted, strip off the leaves, keep the vine, work it into the design. And if you don't have things like this, try and find anything. Even unwanted newspapers, you just roll them up into a long strand, you can actually weave into the structure. So this one, yes, it's just fern leaf. How can I make sure the test tubes don't breed mosquitoes? Number one, this is a very small test tubes. By the time you place a stem inside, I don't think any skinniest mosquito can fly in, okay? So don't worry about that. And of course, the most important thing is that you need to check them almost daily. Not for mosquito to begin with, because they do drink up very fast, so you need to top up water into the test tubes. And if you have that interest in designing, of course, take out all the flowers, remove the water, put fresh ones, and then reinsert the materials, perhaps changing the design a little bit, and this gives you satisfaction and also stretch out your enjoyment a lot more. Okay? What is your book called? It's actually called Damien Koh Monographed. This is produced, well, this was produced 10 years ago by Stitching Kong's book. It's actually a Belgian publishing house that publishes art book. They publish floral design, they publish landscaping, they publish ceramics. I'm very happy I'm the only, well, I'm only the first Chinese person, as in Singaporean Chinese, to be selected and featured and produce this book. So don't think you can find it, but you can try your luck on the internet. How to improve color sense for flower arrangement? Number one, you need to study about color theory, and color theory is just part of it. A lot of time it has to do with your exposures to a lot of things. Go visit museums, galleries, visit, like I said, shopping is a good place because you see a lot of window displays. Artists would have used colors already for you, so you don't have to worry so much. And of course, by looking at what other people are doing and playing with colors also helps. So you need to learn professional knowledge of floristry, but at the same time, develop and explore further with a lot of other mediums that would help you learn. When is the best time to add water to the flower foam? Generally, this comes with a lot of experience because you know certain flowers will take up a lot of water and some don't. But as a general rule of thumb, just add a little bit, and when it's just like your soil, if you put your hand into the foam or the container, you feel that it's very, very dry, then that means it's probably dehydrated. But at the same time, usually I just add a little bit of water, or by experience, sometimes I add waters every 2 or 3 days only. Okay, so I hope this helps. Well, our time is running short.
Yes, Damien, thanks so much for marveling us with
we're
this.
Not supposed to touch, right?
Yes,
Yep.
good distance,
Okay.
yep. All right, that's the end of the floral demonstration for this afternoon. I will thank you all for tuning in. There will be a Facebook Live session on our NParks bus and Singapore Garden Festival Facebook page tomorrow at 2 p.m. So do tune in if you're keen. We'll be talking about mints and gingers brought to you by our NParks colleagues, Dr. Wilson Wong, Dr. Yana Skornikova, and also Miss Sarah Lim. So if you're keen to find out more, do tune in. If you want to check out our Hot Show playlist on our NParks SG YouTube, there'll be more videos on gardening, floral arrangement, aquascaping, and many more. We will be releasing these videos on every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday from now until 31st of October 2021. So we'll see you tomorrow, and goodbye.
Bye.